with me drawing. Let me just take off this, and this is so far what we have, and I have my sketches and everything like that. So far we have this, and usually at this point of the drawing I'd erase part of my sketch depending on what I have actually done. It's quite something I do quite often, though it does make me forget certain things in the drawing sometimes, but it's just how I draw, I guess. So we have this. I need to add the hair for my character, and then I need to also add my piercing for him, and his clothes, and I need to add the background as well. But for the most part, I have most of it done. I'm working on the ear right now, and yeah, so let's get this started, I guess. I'm going to do something that I want you to be able to somewhat see it still through the hair that I'm going to put. His and yeah. Sorry if I get quiet. Like, I don't know why I always say this, but I'm still very sorry that if I get quiet, because I'm just focusing on it. And if you were to watch other people who do live streams of their drawing, you'll notice that they're also quiet when they're doing stuff like this. It's because we're focusing, not because we don't want to initiate a conversation. Well, sometimes most people would think that, but this is just me trying to get everything done and how I want it to look. And when I'm doing these little speed paints, you can actually see the things that go into the drawing, like how I do everything and how it all spins together in the end, and how long it actually takes to do stuff like this. Like, it took me a whole hour to just do some part, like a bit of shading here and there, and to do that mouth too. That mouth was very hard to figure out for a second, because I changed the original design of the mouth for a bit. I realized I haven't added the clothing thing for it. When did I do that? For my palette for my emo boy, and just add the color scheme that I have for his shirt. Sorry if I'm not I'm kind of spreading everything out really weirdly. It's just because I'm thinking. Do that. Lower the opacity. What I do is put Gaussian blur on and blur it out for a bit. And look, because I use the Gaussian blur to make the shading look more natural, because if it was just one solid image like this, it wouldn't look very natural, because every shadow is a little bit blurred. If you look at it, there's always a slight blur to it and how it looks, and yeah, that's the only reason I'm doing things like this. And then I get my white. Then I'll lower the opacity. So what I do is I Gaussian blur, use my light, I lower the opacity till it looks somewhat normal. And then I add. See, this is something like this. It looks like it would be normal, like something that'd be there, not like something that just looks so sketchy and it doesn't look like it fit where it is. So that's just how things work. Yeah. I'm still very proud of how his eyes came out in this picture, which is because my eyes they don't have the same shape about them. Every time I draw them, they're always different in shapes, and that's the main thing I've noticed. And I usually do, like, I've also noticed I like my lines to be very thin most of the time when I'm drawing. I don't really like very thick lines. Like, I'll explain this, because not everyone's draws for their life, so I'll explain it. So there are thin lines, which are like little thin lines, and then there are people who draw with very thick lines, where the lines are very large, and you can see the outer layer very defined, like, kind of thing. Like, but while me, on the other hand, I like my lines to be very light, to the point where you don't really notice that they're there. But, yeah, sorry, somebody came in. Sorry for that weird pause. Somebody came in my room, but I like my lines very thin. As you could tell from most of this drawing, I had my lines very thin. I only made them larger when I was trying to fill something in, for example, and that's the only time I really used darker lines. But even in my smaller things, you'll see that I have very tiny details in all my pictures and little things here and there. And something I forgot about Sean is the fact that Sean has a very distinct mole on his face, and I actually forgot about it until now. So before I start on the hair, which I was going to do after I added the little earring, was to do the hair, but I need to add this little mole that I have on Sean. But yes, I just... There's a mole right here. It's there for a specific reason. Anyways, if we were to do his other side, like this side, if this was to be reversed and it was on his right side, he'd be this. Right. That's very bad. The nose is weird. But if he was here to be on this side, for example, and this side to be, for example, he wouldn't have a mole on this side of his face, but instead, I'm just going to draw the image of his thing. He doesn't have a mole on this side of his face. He only has like one mole on his face, which is weird, but he does have a little tattoo, which I think I went over this in a past one, like a past, in a past thing, but yeah, he has a tattoo, and I actually want to show you guys something. I got the original photos, and I put them in my thing, and I remember I was talking about them, but I really never got to, well, talk about them, I guess. But, yeah. Yeah. But, yeah, so let me just make a new layer. Then, level up there, and there. Insert photo. photos should be, here it is. Gotta see a glimpse of stuff in my photos. But here's the first picture I ever drew with Sean in it. And this was the cover I did for the comic I had with Sean. And this is Sean right here. Here's Sean. You don't see the tattoo in that photo, but in that photo it does show Sean, because by that time I didn't really have the idea for the tattoo, and even if I did draw it, it would have been very weird looking. My old style had very odd eyes. In this photo you really can't see it, but I had very odd eyes I drew. And the thing is, for all of these characters, besides the one I didn't like add the box around, they were all drawn within the same style. But this character right here, Dimitri, was drawn at a different time than all of these ones, and so his hair is much different than the actual style. And that's when I started having my style of hair started to change. So yeah, and here's my first character where I drew with a little cowlick. Her name is Paige. So that I have all the names. So this is Paige, Trish, yes, very generic names, Iris, Dimitri, and then Sean. The writings for all the names are different from each other because I was trying to write them. In this picture, I was writing them to like how the characters would write their names out. And so far, my favorite one I was doing when I was writing all their names out was actually Paige's, because hers was really nice looking. Now you can't see it in this photo because it's exported into the file. If I made it bigger, you might be able to see it better. But yeah, so I wonder, can you tell who the main protagonist is in this picture? Because I added a lot of focus onto them actually in this original photo. And as you can tell, I've changed with my anatomy just by how I did things. Like in my anatomy now, I have ears that don't look so weird. I have faces. My faces, I like how I do. The faces have changed dramatically since back then. My bodies are much more realistic to how they are in real life instead of boxes for bodies. And I'll just mention that I would often use the that one tool where you had like this line in the middle, and if you drew something on this side, it'd be the same on this side. So you'd be able to draw stuff like this, and it'd be on the same on both sides. So I would often use that tool when I was doing things like this, or use the copy and paste. And I usually only use the paste tool when I have to copy two eyes and they have to look the same. But for the most part, I usually don't try to do that. I usually mainly do it for actual how I do the main eye instead of just how I do the eyelashes. The eyelashes I change quite often depending on the expression on the face. Like the unevenness of the eye is actually quite often in most normal faces. But most of the time, I try to have these two things to be the same. Don't know I'm drawing faces on the actual face. That's kind of ironic. But but yeah, how I drew like shadows were, my shadows were very blocky and had no real depth to them. My bodies, like my arms were just rectangles, the bodies were rectangles, like everything had a rectangle, like a box-like shape to it. And I had no idea how wrinkles worked back then. And yes, so this is very odd. I didn't know how people worked when they were on their side, like how like objects would make sort of a, it's hard to explain, but that's for the most part. I didn't know how hair worked really back then. As you can tell, it doesn't have very much form in the hair in any of these pictures. No hair would look like that unless you used tons of hairspray and probably some glue. But yeah, and the clothes are a little weird. But back then, that's just how I would draw. The next thing is for, so let me just add the insert photo, all photos, and I have another one right here. This one is much more sketch, so this one was a sketch when I did it. Just put it over my actual image, but yeah, but in this one, I said, like before, I said that I actually really liked my more recent style because of, if you look at this, you can just see how cute this is. Just, it's so chibi. It's adorable. I loved it. And I wish I could I wish I could redo it, but I can't. Like, I can't redo how the face works. Like, it's just impossible. I started to figure out how hair worked. I realized that hair isn't just a body of things and has strands and individuality to it. That's when I started getting more realistic, was when I started doing this. Then, yes, I shipped 2 of my characters. And Iris is a girl. Just saying, just making that clear. This is the tattoo I was talking about, the tattoo that I had to look at the internet for to see and get the main idea for. And this is like a redraw version of this up here, which is a little weirder, how their bodies are. I mean, I had more of an idea how bodies worked, but my God, I had those very, very long necks that made them look like a giraffe. I'm just saying. Now my necks look somewhat realistic for how they're actually supposed to. And he doesn't have an Adam's apple. Guess he must be a little boy. But that's off topic. But yeah, my necks, they were way too long. Like, see, this is the size of the neck. And mine, for the ratio, like from the body to the neck, it's much better. It's much better now. Much better. And yeah, I do love certain things about this picture still. Like I said, I liked my art style back then and how cute it was. Just saying, this is like the cutest thing I've ever seen. So this is my more favorited things. And in this picture, it has a lot more things that shows, like, his hair is much odder in this picture, and there's no ears. Just saying, I never drew ears. I draw more ears now. And in this picture, it showed like the little thing, the reference picture to draw this. It shows how like blocky my hair was and just how weird it was. And it was very cube and yeah, very odd. Nothing was proportional. Like the heads didn't look anything alike. If I were to draw the same head twice, it would look nothing alike. It would be, one would be like this, one would be like short, and the other one would have a really long area for the mouth, and one would have a small area for the mouth, and that would annoy me constantly. But this was the more recent-ish one that I did. It's like a year or so ago, but yes, one of my more favorited items. But yeah, so now I have this style, which, speaking of this style, I need to do something. So, So now that I have that, I'm going to add a layer above and get the rough idea of how I want my hair to look. I usually don't always use the same color for the hair that I'm having, but in this case I kind of need to. So I have my hair. Just throughout the years I found while drawing, which is a hobby, my art is a hobby, I found throughout really drawing through the years, I found that I've often struggled with how I want my hair to look for my characters. I've always struggled with that. Even now I still kind of struggle with it a bit. I do hate it when my lines don't meet up to my expectations. Like I was saying, I like very thin lines, and when my lines don't look nice, I get very, I don't like it. Don't like it when my lines get all gross looking and they don't fit the picture I'm trying to portray with the characters. And that's saying I do still love my characters I'm using. It's just something that annoys me to this day while I draw. There's quite a few things that annoy me when I'm drawing, but that's just to name one. It's one that really does get on my nerves. This pencil is very light. Sorry if I stop in between, like I've said before. My stopping is just because I'm thinking about what to do. I just want the best outcome for these pictures I draw, and I just want the best outcome, I guess. And yeah. I don't know. This is where I probably will get the most, like the quietest, because I'm just trying to make the hair look fabulous, I guess. Just trying to make it look the nicest it can. And I just realized his head is going to be extremely big compared to everything else. And when I'm doing this, when I often draw the hair, I will switch between the hair and the sketch, like the reference sketch I have. Like my sketch I use for reference, and I often go on and off from looking at it to when I'm drawing, because it either helps or it doesn't, because the sketch itself can get in the way of the drawing, and it annoys me when that happens. Like, it was so good, and then I looked at the sketch, then it ruined it. And yeah. Something I also hate is when my lines aren't smooth, I guess. It's like when they're like all like lumpy, they're not smooth. So I always try to make it so the line is always the first stroke that ends. Try to make it so it's all nice and pretty so I don't have to draw another stroke to make it look pretty. And if I focus too much on the sketch, I won't realize the effect I'm having on the hair, because the hair has a certain effect to it as well. But yeah, I just try not to focus on the sketch too much. Around this point is when I try not to focus on it too much, because it will hinder the picture I'm trying to portray with the character, which I do love that when I have to draw something with the character and it doesn't exactly do what I'm wanting. Just my favorite thing is when it annoys me. My favorite thing about drawing these little pictures is probably having people say they liked it, like enjoy looking at my work and complimenting me on it and saying, "Wow, that's very nice. How did you do this? You're only so and so. So young. You're so talented." It's probably my favorite thing. It's probably when people enjoy my artwork. My least favorite thing is when people go up to me and think certain things about artists. That sounded a lot more aggressive than I thought it would. But what I was trying to say was, basically, I don't like it when I have someone comes up to me and asks me to draw them when I'm already booked with drawing certain things. Like, some people may not understand that, but for people who draw, it's like, really? You're watching me draw something and I'm not even close to being done, and then you ask me to draw you? How do you think all this works get done? I don't just like draw two things at once. I can't. I'm not a superhuman, people. Please don't ask. It's very annoying because I'm still trying to do stuff. All artists hate it, and I agree with them. It's quite annoying. I have to deal with the mindset of those who do not understand how much time and effort we take into these little artworks that they so adore. But I guess I'm kind of getting a little aggressive if I think about it. I don't need to really think about it. I am kind of being a little passive-aggressive. I'm sorry if I seem passive-aggressive. It's not... Yeah, I don't hate people. It's just... people have gotten on my bad side multiple times, and I'm just done, I guess. I'm just annoyed by the constant jabber, I guess is easier way to put it. People annoy me. That sounds very bad. Sounds bad is when I say I'm awkward, because it's true. And people are like, "No, you're not." I'm like, then you don't know me. I think I said this in the first, oh god, no. I think I said this in the first, speed paint, like, not speed paint, little stream I did of these things that I turn into speed paints. The first thing I did was probably, I lost track, dang it, ADD, why? I'd be so ADD about things. Okay, so I remember, okay, so the thing is, I often struggle with the head size, I guess. I don't realize how large the head is until it's too late. I'm like, what have I done? People say I'm funny. I don't see where it comes from. Sorry, that's a little tangent off to the side. But I often struggle with how big the head ends up becoming, and I get very frustrated sometimes because of it. And like, I'm just thinking, how did this happen? Why do you look good at first when the sketch, and trying to just go along with the sketch, and it just doesn't want to work? Okay, but yeah, so now that I have that done, don't know where I was, I lost myself, but I often, like, have such trouble with how big the head ends up looking. Like, right now, I like the head, but when I realize, once I color it, how big my head actually is, and it's just, boy, where do you get all this head? Just gonna do that. It loses some of my shape, but it's necessary. But yeah, I feel like I'm gonna end this one earlier than usual, because I'm focusing a little too much, and I'm not talking as much as I would like to talk to you guys, but I'm just really awkward, and it's a Monday. I can't handle Mondays. I really can't. It's the truth. So yeah. So I'll continue this later, I guess. Not. I'm not gonna say that. I usually do one stream a day. Maybe I'll do 2 for you guys, cause why not? But yeah. I guess I'll end this one earlier. So that's all for today now. See you guys, and bye.